Hi, welcome to the Keys podcast with Victor Kyerematen and Kweku Essien. Nice to meet you, Essien. How you doing?
Cheers.
Okay, so tell me, what do you do?
I am a VP of partnerships for a company called Sesso Global. I'm also an investor in the company as well. And Sesso is a property tech platform that seeks to create an ecosystem for property and property related transactions.
What made you get into property transactions? What made you get into this field?
I had been studying the effects of property rights on nation building and on economies, and I had studied a company called Terranet in Canada, that is a private company that manages the property sort of the lands commission for the province of Ontario in Canada. And I had a chance encounter with the CEO of the company called Daniel Block in Ghana, and we both bonded over that company. And at the time, he was working with the Ghana Lands Commission to assist them with their digitization efforts. And so, really, just born from that meeting and my sort of past research into the issues, sort of I decided to sort of become an investor in the company after a few years of meeting him, and then coming back to Ghana as well to run the company here in Ghana and to try and move its efforts here in Ghana and other parts of Africa.
Wow, that sounds like a challenge. But can you tell me how your journey has been with Sesu since you started in Ghana?
Yeah, I mean, like everything else, there it's ups and downs, but I think it's been going in the right direction since we started. The company started about 3.5 years or so ago, and I've been in Ghana now for about a year and a half or so. And I mean, like everything else, it's an education in terms of what we want to do. It is an innovative product, an innovative solution, and so like everything else, you'll need to sort of explain it well, market it properly, and get the right stakeholders in place. But today we do have about 25 property developers on our platform. These are and sort of one bank, Republic Bank in Ghana, is our partner here as well. We have multiple more banks who are keen to join. We work with some of the top lawyers as well here, and so and are sort of good friends with the people at the Lands Commission as well there, in terms of working with them as well. So it's been moving in the right direction. I'm an impatient person, so always wanted to happen now. But I think, yeah, by His grace, we've done quite well, I think.
And you mentioned how the process of bringing an innovative solution or product to the market could have its challenges and intricacies. And you also mentioned about the importance of bringing the right stakeholders, like you mentioned that you've been fortunate to have throughout your process. Could you give us some tips or some advice on how to attract the kind of right stakeholders you need, and following from that, how to frame or to brand your innovative product or solution when coming to the market?
Yeah, I think it's just about having multiple conversations. When you come down here, it's important to understand that everybody is doing their own thing. Everybody is living their own life as well, and has their own issues and challenges, and not to get too sort of bogged down in the sort of the day-to-day of things, or sort of how conversations are going. Maybe they're not going the way you want it to go. As I said, I'm impatient, but I've learned very quickly to become quite patient with people, as well. And really, what happens is that as you're having those conversations, you'll end up chatting with people who have a similar mindset and want to sort of work with you in that way. And I think that's really what you have to do, right? You talk to a lot of them, and then you find people with a similar mindset, and then you sort of you do the work, right? And as you keep doing it, other people who you've had perhaps conversations in the past, you had a conversation with someone a year ago, sort of sees how you're sort of moving now, and then sort of understands it a bit better from there. And so that's really, I think, what we've done here at SET. So it's just persistence more than anything else, and just getting better and finding the right partners to work with at a given time, and then sort of doing that work with that person and then moving forward.
Could you tell us a little bit about the general industry, property tech industry in Ghana? What do you think? Where are we now? Where do we need to be in the next 5, 10 years, 20 years?
Yeah. So, in terms of, I mean, there are well documented issues with the land property sector here in Ghana. I mean, in terms of the housing deficits, about 20 million or so. Sorry, I think that's 2 million. My bad. 2 to 5 million a housing deficit. In Nigeria, it's 20 million. That's why I mentioned that number. What you find is that a lot of that stems from different issues. One being the Lands Commission is not as efficient as it should be. You'll find in the history of the Lands Commission that the Lands Commission is actually made up of many different systems. So the traditional system that came before it, then the colonizer system that came before it, and then sort of the early government as well that came before it, and then sort of now the modern government. So you find that there are about 3 or 4 departments with different details and info on the property sector here. And really what that brings is inefficiencies and has led to really this housing deficit. And it's also led to the fact that a lot of the banks have to sort of give out high-risk loans, right, and at high interest rates as well. And so all of these things make it quite difficult for those in the property space. You'll find that the mortgage market here in Ghana is about 1% of the GDP. Just to give you a reference, in the States, before the 2008 crash, it was about 70% of the GDP in the States. So there's a big difference there. And it leads to some of the issues we have here. And so in terms of where we need to be, it's just about trust and transparency, right? Once you create those elements, and that's what our platform seeks to do, once you create those elements, it reduces risk by a lot, and it makes it much more easier for everybody else to purchase property if they know that there's trust in the system and it's a transparent system, and it creates efficiencies.
Are there any, if you had the ear of, let's say, the president or the minister of interior, whichever stakeholder was important to your industry, what sort of advice, what sort of recommendations would you give them to kind of mitigate some of these inefficiencies and cut away the red tape, so to speak?
Yeah. So I'll say this: the issue of digitizing your lands commission or creating that efficiency, it is a very challenging issue. And so I don't blame any government or any one stakeholder for sort of creating a solution for this. In fact, one of the only places where a government has been able to successfully digitize their land registry is Canada. You would think it's in the States, no, it's not, to be honest with you. In the States, it's the insurance market that sort of owns that sort of piece. But in Canada, like as I said, in Ontario, a company called Terranet put this together. And even for them, it took them a long time to digitize it. And also, as well, it cost them hundreds of millions of dollars, right? And so you can imagine bringing that same context here, how much it would cost and sort of how cumbersome it can be, right? And so what I would suggest is a concept that maybe is a bit too technical for here, but really a concept that is very cheap. It's called day forwarding, where essentially you can create a digitized system with the transactions from this day forward. So essentially, each time an individual does due diligence on a property, let's say this property here, right? Let's say you check this land here to check if I own this land, right? Each time you do that check, that information can then be digitized and put on a platform, right? Because that check has been done at the Lands Commission, and then the results have come out that, hey, yes, I do own this land. And then each time you purchase a property as well, so once the title has then been sent back to you, that registration, that information as well can then be put on the blockchain, right? So that's one way of doing it. The other way of thinking about it as well is, and what CESO did to start, was we targeted a lot of the large-scale property developers, the credible guys. So there are a good chunk of sort of credible guys. You know, the Ghana Real Estate Development Association, GREDA, is one of those where there are a lot of members there that have created developments. Those can be easily digitized because typically these guys have done due diligence on their land and sort of understand and sort of have understood the terrain as well. And so that those can also be potentially put on the platform. You would still want to do the due diligence on because nothing is 100%, but that can be put on as well, right? Yeah, I mean, and you can always sort of utilize the traditional methods as well, right, of surveying where, although that is a very expensive way to do it, but it may be useful to utilize those methods for especially, you know, areas you know, more sort of slum areas or more areas that are not as residential
Accessible.
or exactly accessible. Those areas you might want to sort of actually do a survey. Although again, that costs a lot of money, and maybe you might want to get some grant money for that.
Thank you for that. So I'm seeing two points I want to touch on is sort of the role of tech and how we can use tech to sort of scale these projects or these goals up and reduce cost. I think you mentioned blockchain as sort of the foundation for this day forwarding process and for what CESO does with PropTech. And I'd like maybe if you could touch on that a little bit. I know it's a bit complicated, but if you could just simplify in the simplest way how blockchain works and how it works in this specific situation.
Sure. So I always like to mention that blockchain is just a tool, like everything else, and it's not a magic solution to anything. But essentially, blockchain, if you want to think about it in maybe the simplest sense, is a new type of protocol in the same way that the internet was a new type of protocol. So the difference between the internet and blockchain in a way is that, so with the internet, let's take for example email, right? With email, I send you an email, you own a copy, I own a copy, right? So the internet really was sort of a fantastic thing that essentially enabled the free flow of information, right? Now with things of value, if I send you money, I can't have a copy. And so that's why we've always had sort of institutions in the middle that validate a transaction or validate something of value. So a government can validate, you know, a piece of property. A bank can validate if money was sort of transferred, right? And so blockchain was created really to sort of begin to solve some of these issues. So it's about the free flowing of value, right? And creating and really a system that is essentially creating transparency and trust when it comes to the free flowing of value
and transaction.
And so essentially how we utilize it here is, as I mentioned before, where each time there's a transaction, that information is stored on the blockchain. So with the blockchain, the most important or at least one of the more important elements, if you are utilizing it, is to make sure that the first source, the first bit of information, is as pure as you can get it. So that's why I mentioned once a property is registered or due diligence is done. So once the government, you know, has given that certification, exactly, that's when we put it on the blockchain, because then you know that the information is sort of pure.
Pure.
So that's how we utilize
Yeah.
it here.
Yeah.
In the future, once we have all that information, it'll then make it much more easier to search for information, and be sure that that information is pure, right? From there. And so, for now, it's more so used as a sort of a database to ensure that the information is transparent and trustworthy. In the future, it'll sort of enable us a bit more when we are utilizing it for other means as well, in terms of searching and making sure that there's consensus when it comes to like understanding who owns what property and at what time.
So I guess it's also about population, in terms of populating the system and using with all the transactions, with more and more transactions. So would you say that people have to buy into this, or it's mostly corporations that you are looking to engage?
Obviously, we started at the corporate level. We went to property developers, went to banks, more so as a business because it's the lowest hanging fruit, or at least the easiest. It's easier. It takes me the same amount of time to convince you of something as it would to convince a big organization. And so we went there because we could get the most bang for our buck. But at the end of the day, if you want to sort of fully populate anything, I mean, most of the properties here in Ghana, I think 90% or so, are built by individuals, right? Other than and so, I mean, at some point, and obviously with government help, this would be great. But we could do like a marketing campaign where it says, "Register your property. Do you own your property?" Where individuals can come in, register their property, and then that registration, the data from that goes into our database. And so once it's on that database, you are much more secure that your land or whatever, the information there is on one sort of pure ledger, right? One pure database where the information is not shuffled around in different silos, which is the issue now with the Lands Commission, right? And so that's something that we'd very much like to do, especially maybe next year. It's something that we do want to push. And that's why we partner with lawyers as well, because in Ghana, it's the conveyancer that needs to sort of register your land or do the due diligence. But we'd love to do a bit more with government as well on that in the future.
For an individual looking to develop a startup, a tech startup in Ghana today, post-corona, what has some of your experiences taught you that you could teach them or teach others looking to start in tech startups?
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's no one way to anything, but what I would say is that like everything else, I think it's similar to what I said before in terms of conversations you have to have in trying to find people, like-minded people, right? Whether it is sort of a co-CEO, sort of partner as well in starting the company. Obviously, there's some accelerators out there as well that do provide that help, and perhaps depending on who you are, it might be good to sort of utilize those things. Obviously, I do a lot with the family as well, and so I always sort of I think your mother and dad, as long as they've been there for you since you were kids, typically they'll be there for you at this stage as well, hopefully. And yeah, I mean, I'll say that there are obviously different routes out there. I would use resources like LinkedIn and others as well, and I would use any resource in your toolkit. If there are events to go to, and I would just have multiple conversations, right? I think to be honest, that is the most important thing, to have those conversations and understand, is there someone sort of vibing with you at that level? Do they want to do more with you? And then from there, you see where it goes, and it helps you validate your idea as well to have those conversations, because some people may say this is a good idea, some people may say no. It's good to ask them why, and it'll as long as you're honest with yourself, I think you'll be able to sort of begin to navigate that and understand, is this a good idea or not? And it's not necessarily that if I tell you your idea is bad, it's gonna be bad. It may just be that I don't understand what you're talking about, right? And so I think generally that's it. I don't think there's any secret sauce to it per se, but having those conversations and persistence, and just not getting too down, not getting too low or too high. You know, any football coach will tell you that, right? Is don't get too low, don't get too high, and just sort of keep moving. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. So you mentioned accelerators. Could you mention any accelerators or VCs that work within Africa that deal with African startups that you know, if you can mention any of them?
Yeah, I mean, sort of, there I guess a few of them. There are a lot of them sort of popping up. I would say, I guess the most known one is perhaps Mest per se as well. I mean, to be honest with you, with Sesso, we did get a lot of our funds from angel investors as well, and we're lucky enough to do that. And so, I mean, on the continent, there have been. I mean, these are easy, you can easily find them. So I don't think I need. Yeah, you can easily find them online.
Google.
Yeah, just Google it.
Google is your best friend.
Yeah, you don't need me to help you do that.
That's true.
If you need me to help you do
yeah.
that, then you might as well not be doing this business.
That's true.
But there are a good. I mean, especially over the last sort of 5 to 10 years. I think a lot of people, a lot of VCs, a lot of investors have realized that there is the opportunity on the continent. And so because of that, we are finding more VCs popping up. And also there are more angel investors who are understanding that, hey, perhaps it may be important for me to get into tech as well. Because obviously tech, I mean, we all understand is the future, right? And sort of a good way to make some good returns. And so there are a lot of them popping up, and that's actually one of the reasons why I say utilize all these methods, right? Because you through your conversations, through your research, through LinkedIn, through whatever, through the meetups, you might find individuals that you didn't even realize sort of were investors, right? Who might just pop up and put some money in your idea. So I think that's happening. What is also sort of happening as well a little bit, especially in Nigeria, maybe less so here, but it'll come here for sure, is that there are a lot of individuals, sort of, I guess, companies in Nigeria who are startups who did get their good, did some good capital raising, made a lot of money, and sort of now are also become themselves VCs. And so that's what happened in Silicon Valley and all these other places as well. And it'll happen here as well, in that sense that people will get some good, will make some good money from this business, and then begin to sort of pay it forward and put money in. So I'm very sort of bullish about the tech sector in that sense. I mean, where else can the world go to but that? Yeah.
And so I'd like you to give us, for the end, to give us your number one money tip or investment tip, anything to do with money that you think the people should know. Anything.
Well, I guess I'll talk about property more than anything.
Exactly.
So, I mean, for me, as I mentioned, you know, I think actually I believe, to be honest with you, that the key to wealth on this continent is property. So once we solve that, and it's important, I think, for everybody to maybe, if you can, obviously, to go buy a piece of land somewhere. You know, my mom talks about the fact that she bought. This was in 1980s, but she bought land in Ofankor for 6 Ghana cedis. And so, I mean, I would say if you can buy land anywhere, I mean, there are pockets of places where you can buy land. I would buy land for sure, because you never really know where it's going to go. And it's good. I mean, my dad says this as well, that, you know, his dad, my granddad, offered him land in East Legon. And he said no at the time because it was bushland.
Yeah. It's true.
I think about it now.
Yeah,
it's just hilarious, right? So I would say, if you can, you know, go buy some land. And it's one of the things that we are trying to solve to make it easier for people. But it's just a good way to gain wealth, because, you know, you want to start a business, banks will always ask you for collateral. And so what's your collateral? Oh, okay, I have some land, right? And so, and you want to get a sort of, actually, you want to get a loan for anything.
Financing.
Yeah, you want to get a loan financing for anything. It's one of the easiest ways to raise capital.
Even more capital.
Yeah, exactly. So, as well, you can own the land and buy a home. Once you have a home, you have a home. You know.
Exactly.
So, for me, that is the number one tip. I mean, for those in the stock market and whatnot as well, maybe you can buy some Tesla stock if you want, but I would say buy property. Yeah.
That sounds great. Thank you so much, Kweku Essien. It's been a great talk. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, cheers.